Victoria Emerson's wineglass froze midway to her lips when she saw her ex-boyfriend walk through the door of Bellini's, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. She hadn't seen Gregory Wilson in 8 months, not since she'd finally found the courage to end their 3-year relationship. Her heart pounded as the maitre d' led him and his business associates toward a table not far from where she sat alone, reviewing notes for tomorrow's board meeting. "Just my luck," she whispered to herself, trying to appear absorbed in her tablet as she discreetly observed him. Gregory looked the same, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that emphasized his athletic build, his dark hair perfectly styled, his smile charming the hostess as she seated his party. Victoria knew that smile all too well. It was the same one he'd used to win her over, the same one he'd flashed right before delivering cutting remarks designed to diminish her confidence. Victoria had been working as a marketing director when they met at a charity gala. He'd been captivated by her intelligence and drive, or at least that's what he'd claimed. It wasn't until they were 6 months into their relationship that his controlling nature emerged. Small criticisms about her appearance gradually escalated to questioning her career decisions and monitoring her friendships. When she received her promotion to CMO at Emerson Beauty, a cosmetics company founded by her late aunt, Gregory had been outwardly supportive while privately suggesting she wasn't ready for such responsibility. Now, as CEO of that same company, which she'd transformed into one of the fastest-growing beauty brands in the country, Victoria felt a flicker of the old anxiety she'd worked so hard to overcome. She debated paying her bill and leaving before Gregory noticed her, but something inside refused to let her retreat. This was her favorite restaurant, and she had every right to enjoy her dinner in peace. Her server appeared at her side. "Miss Emerson, would you like another glass of wine?" Before Victoria could answer, a deep voice interrupted from behind her. "Allow me to get that for you." Victoria turned to find herself looking up at Gavin Quinn, the owner of Quinn Hotels, a luxury hotel chain with properties throughout North America and Europe. She recognized him immediately. His face had been featured in numerous business magazines, and they'd been introduced briefly at an entrepreneurs conference last year. He was taller than she remembered, with striking green eyes and broad shoulders that filled out his navy suit impressively. "Mr. Quinn," she said, surprised. "That's not necessary. Please call me Gavin," he replied with a warm smile. "And I insist. I've been meaning to introduce myself properly. Your company's transformation over the past 2 years has been remarkable." Victoria felt a flush of pride, but before she could respond, she noticed Gregory watching them with undisguised interest from his table across the room. "Thank you, but I was actually just finishing up," she said, reaching for her purse. Gavin's gaze followed hers to Gregory's table. "Is everything okay?" he asked quietly. Victoria hesitated, then nodded toward Gregory. "My ex. We didn't part on the best terms, and I'd rather not deal with him tonight." Understanding crossed Gavin's features. "Would you like some company? Might make things less uncomfortable." Victoria considered his offer. Under normal circumstances, she might have declined. She valued her independence and rarely accepted help, even when she needed it. But something about Gavin's sincere expression made her reconsider. "If you're sure you don't mind," she said finally. "Not at all. I was supposed to meet a business associate, but he canceled at the last minute." Gavin took the seat across from her. "I've been wanting to discuss a potential collaboration between our companies anyway." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Oh. Quinn Hotels is developing a new line of in-room amenities. Emerson Beauty would be the perfect partner." His smile was genuine, with none of the predatory charm she'd grown wary of in the business world. For the next hour, they talked about their respective businesses, discovering shared philosophies about sustainability and employee development. Victoria found herself relaxing, almost forgetting about Gregory's presence until she noticed him approaching their table. "Victoria," Gregory said, his voice carrying that familiar condescending tone she'd grown to dread. "What a surprise to see you here." Victoria straightened her shoulders. "Gregory, won't you introduce me to your friend?" His eyes swept over Gavin dismissively. Gavin Quinn, Gavin said, standing to shake Gregory's hand with a firm grip. And you are Gregory Wilson, Victoria's ex-boyfriend, though I'm surprised she's mentioned me. She's not usually one to discuss personal matters. He turned to Victoria. You're looking well. I see you're still running your aunt's little company. Victoria felt her confidence waver. Gregory had always known exactly how to belittle her achievements. Actually, Gavin interjected smoothly, Victoria's leadership has transformed Emerson Beauty. Their market valuation has tripled in 2 years, hardly what I'd call little. Gregory's smile tightened. Well, she always had big dreams, I just worried they weren't realistic. Business can be cutthroat. I think she's proven herself more than capable, Gavin replied, his tone pleasant but firm. Victoria found her voice. I appreciate your concern, Gregory, but as Gavin mentioned, Emerson Beauty is thriving. Now, if you'll excuse us, we were discussing business. Gregory's expression hardened. Still hiding behind your work, I see. Some things never change. That's enough, Gavin said, his voice low but authoritative. I think Victoria has made it clear this conversation is over. Gregory's eyes narrowed. I don't remember asking for your opinion. And I don't remember Victoria asking for yours regarding her company or her life choices, Gavin replied calmly. Victoria stood, her heart racing but her voice steady. Gregory, we broke up 8 months ago. You don't get to comment on my life anymore. Please go back to your table. For a moment, Gregory looked as though he might argue, but a quick glance around the restaurant where several diners were now watching the exchange with interest seemed to change his mind. Have it your way, he said coldly, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. He stalked back to his table, visibly fuming. Victoria sank back into her chair, her hands trembling slightly. I'm sorry about that. Don't apologize, Gavin said gently. He was out of line. I should have handled it better. It's just, he always had a way of making me doubt myself. From what I can see, you handled it perfectly, and for what it's worth, your ex couldn't be more wrong about you or your capabilities. Victoria smiled gratefully. Thank you for backing me up. Anyone would have done the same, he replied. No, Victoria said quietly, they wouldn't. Most people would have stayed out of it. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the atmosphere between them. Would you like to get out of here? Gavin asked. There's a quiet lounge in my hotel just a few blocks away. We could continue our conversation without an audience. Victoria hesitated only briefly. I'd like that. After settling the bill, which Gavin insisted on paying despite Victoria's protests, they left the restaurant. The April evening was cool but pleasant as they walked the few blocks to the Quinn, Gavin's flagship hotel. Victoria was acutely aware of his presence beside her, the subtle scent of his cologne, the way he automatically adjusted his stride to match hers. The lounge on the hotel's top floor offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline. They found a quiet corner with comfortable seating, and Gavin ordered drinks from a discreet server who appeared instantly. I have to ask, Victoria said once they were settled. Were you really interested in a collaboration, or was that just an excuse to rescue me from an uncomfortable situation? Gavin smiled. Both. I genuinely am interested in working with Emerson Beauty, but I'll admit I'd been working up the courage to approach you about it for weeks. Seeing you alone at dinner seemed like fate. Well, I'm glad you did, Victoria admitted. Gregory has a way of throwing me off balance. Even after all this time. Do you mind if I ask what happened between you two? Victoria sipped her wine, considering how much to share. We were together for 3 years. At first, everything seemed perfect, but gradually he started trying to control me, what I wore, who I spent time with, even my career decisions. He was subtle about it, always framing his criticism as concern. She paused. It took me longer than it should have to recognize what was happening. That kind of manipulation can be hard to see when you're in the middle of it, Gavin said. Victoria nodded. The breaking point came when my aunt passed away and left me the company. Gregory insisted I sell it, said I wasn't cut out for leadership. That's when I finally saw our relationship for what it was. And instead, you turned the company into a powerhouse. That must have been satisfying, Victoria smiled. It was, still is, every day. She studied him curiously. What about you? How did you get into the hotel business? Family legacy initially, Gavin explained. My grandfather started with one small hotel in Chicago. My father expanded to 3 more locations. When I took over after my father's retirement, I had this vision of creating something different hotels that felt like genuine retreats, not just places to sleep. You've certainly succeeded. The Quinn properties are legendary for their service. Thank you, it's been my life's work. He hesitated, perhaps too much so, according to my last girlfriend. She left because I was married to my hotels, as she put it. Victoria laughed softly. I've heard similar complaints. It's not easy to find someone who understands the demands of building something meaningful. No, it's not, Gavin agreed, his eyes holding hers. They talked for hours, discovering shared experiences and values. Gavin told her about growing up in Chicago, his close relationship with his sister, his passion for architectural design. Victoria shared stories about her childhood in Connecticut, her love of painting, her dream of creating a foundation to support young female entrepreneurs. It was nearly midnight when Victoria reluctantly checked her watch. I should probably go. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Of course, Gavin said, signaling for the check. Can I call you a car? Thank you, but I already have my driver on standby. They rode the elevator down to the lobby in comfortable silence. Outside, Victoria's car was waiting at the curb. Thank you for tonight, she said. For the rescue and the conversation. It was my pleasure, Gavin replied. About that collaboration, would you be open to discussing it further, perhaps over dinner? Victoria smiled. I'd like that. Have your office call mine to set it up. Actually, Gavin said, looking slightly sheepish, I was hoping to call you directly, if that's all right. Victoria felt a flutter of anticipation. It is. She pulled out a business card and wrote her personal number on the back before handing it to him. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and Victoria felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. From Gavin's expression, she knew he'd felt it too. I'll call you tomorrow, he promised. I'll look forward to it. Victoria got into her car, watching through the window as Gavin stood on the sidewalk until her car pulled away. As promised, Gavin called her the next day, and they arranged to meet for dinner that weekend. What started as a business discussion quickly evolved into something more personal. By the end of the evening, Victoria found herself sharing things she rarely discussed with anyone: her fears about living up to her aunt's legacy, her dreams for the future, even her guilty pleasure for reality baking shows. Over the following weeks, they began seeing each other regularly. Gavin introduced her to his favorite jazz club in Harlem. Victoria took him to a small art gallery in Brooklyn run by a college friend. They discovered a shared love of early morning runs in Central Park and quiet evenings with good books. 1 month into their relationship, they attended a charity gala together, their first public appearance as a couple. Victoria felt a twinge of anxiety as they walked the red carpet, photographers calling their names and flashbulbs popping around them. Are you okay? Gavin asked quietly, his hand warm against the small of her back. Just nervous, she admitted. I'm not used to this kind of attention. We can skip the red carpet if you'd prefer. Victoria shook her head. No, it's important for the charity. I'll be fine. Inside, they mingled with other business leaders and philanthropists. Victoria was in the midst of a conversation with the charity's director when she felt Gavin tense beside her. Following his gaze, she saw Gregory approaching with a striking blonde on his arm. Victoria, Gregory said with a tight smile. Twice in 1 month, what are the odds? Allow me to introduce Melissa Davis, my date. Melissa, this is Victoria Emerson, an old friend. Victoria nodded politely to the woman. Nice to meet you. And you remember Gavin Quinn, Gregory continued, his tone dismissive. Of course, Gavin replied smoothly. Enjoying the evening, Gregory ignored the question, turning back to Victoria. I saw the quarterly report for Emerson Beauty. Impressive numbers, though I notice you're expanding rather aggressively into the Asian market. Risky move. Victoria felt her defenses rising. Our market research suggests otherwise. Well, you always did prefer to ignore sound advice, Gregory said with a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. I remember trying to talk you out of that disastrous product launch 2 years ago. What was it called? Radiance, wasn't it? Luminous, Victoria corrected, feeling her confidence waver. The Luminous skincare line had indeed struggled initially, though it had eventually become one of their best sellers after some reformulation. Right, Luminous, Gregory said. Cost the company millions before you pulled it, as I recall. Before Victoria could respond, Gavin spoke up. Actually, the Luminous line was reimagined and relaunched within 3 months. It's now Emerson Beauty's top-selling product line in Europe. That kind of agility and resilience is exactly why Victoria's company is outperforming most of its competitors. Gregory's smile faltered. Well, I always said she was lucky, not luck, Gavin countered. Skill, vision, and determination. Victoria built something extraordinary, Gregory, though I'm guessing you've never been comfortable with that fact. Victoria touched Gavin's arm. Gavin, it's fine. No, it's not, Gavin said quietly. He doesn't get to diminish what you've accomplished. Gregory's face darkened. I see you found someone else to validate your every decision, Victoria. How convenient. That's not what this is, Victoria said firmly. Gavin respects me as an equal. Something you never managed to do, Gregory scoffed. Is that what you think, that I didn't respect you? I was trying to protect you from yourself. I never needed protection, Victoria replied. I needed support. There's a difference. Melissa, looking increasingly uncomfortable, tugged at Gregory's arm. Greg, I think they're about to start the presentations. We should find our seats. Gregory ignored her. You've always had a problem accepting criticism, Victoria. It's why we didn't work out. That's not why we didn't work out, Victoria said, her voice gaining strength. We didn't work out because you couldn't accept that I had my own mind, my own goals, and my own way of doing things. You wanted to control me, and when you couldn't, you tried to undermine my confidence instead. Several nearby guests had stopped their conversations to listen, and Gregory seemed to suddenly realize they had an audience. His expression hardened. Think whatever helps you sleep at night, he said coldly. Come on, Melissa. He stalked away, pulling his date along with him. Victoria exhaled slowly. I'm sorry about that. Gavin looked at her with admiration. You have nothing to apologize for. That was impressive. Really, because I feel like I just created a scene at a charity event. You stood up for yourself against someone who was trying to belittle you. There's nothing wrong with that. Victoria felt a rush of gratitude for his understanding. Thank you for being here. Gavin took her hand, lacing their fingers together. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. The rest of the evening passed without incident, though Victoria noticed Gregory watching them from across the room throughout the event. When they finally left, she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. Would you like to come back to my place for a nightcap? Gavin asked as they waited for the valet to bring their car. Victoria hesitated. They hadn't yet taken their relationship to that level, though she'd been thinking about it more and more. Just a drink, Gavin added, sensing her uncertainty. No pressure, Victoria smiled. A nightcap sounds perfect. Gavin's penthouse apartment occupied the top floor of a renovated pre-war building in the Upper East Side. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, while the interior featured a tasteful blend of contemporary furniture and vintage architectural elements. This is beautiful, Victoria said, moving to the windows to take in the nighttime skyline. Thank you. It took 3 years to renovate the building. I wanted to preserve as much of the original character as possible while making it functional for modern living. Victoria turned to find him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. What? She asked softly. You're remarkable, Victoria. The way you handled Gregory tonight, most people would have either backed down or lost their temper. You were firm but dignified. Victoria shook her head. It wasn't always that way. I spent years letting him make me doubt myself. But not anymore, Gavin said, moving closer. No, not anymore. Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper. Gavin reached out, his fingers gently tracing the line of her jaw. I've been wanting to kiss you since that first night at the restaurant. Victoria's heart raced. What's stopping you now? Without another word, Gavin closed the distance between them, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened. Victoria wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing herself against the solid warmth of his body. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing heavily. "Stay with me tonight," Gavin murmured, his forehead resting against hers. Victoria nodded, words momentarily beyond her. That night marked a turning point in their relationship, as they discovered a physical chemistry that matched their emotional connection. Over the following months, they fell into a comfortable rhythm, dividing their time between his apartment and her brownstone in Greenwich Village. They worked long hours during the week, often meeting for late dinners to discuss their days, then spent weekends exploring the city or retreating to Gavin's house in the Hamptons. Their collaboration between Quinn Hotels and Emerson Beauty launched to great success, with Victoria's company providing exclusive bath and body products for all of Gavin's properties. The business relationship only strengthened their personal one, as they found they worked well together professionally too, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. Victoria's past experiences with Gregory had left her with deep-seated trust issues that occasionally surfaced. When Gavin had to cancel plans last minute due to a crisis at one of his international properties, she found herself questioning whether his work would always take precedence, just as Gregory had predicted. "I'm sorry," Gavin said during a tense phone call. "If there was any way to avoid this trip, I would, but the manager resigned without notice and I need to be there to handle the transition." "I understand," Victoria replied, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. This is the third time in 2 weeks. I know, and I hate letting you down, but this is the nature of what we do, Vic. You of all people should understand that." Victoria bristled at the comment. "What's that supposed to mean?" Gavin sighed. "Nothing. I just meant that you also run a global company. You know how it is." "Right." Victoria's tone was cooler than she intended. "Well, have a safe flight. Let me know when you land." She hung up before he could respond, immediately regretting her reaction. Gavin wasn't Gregory. He'd never tried to control her or diminish her achievements. If anything, he was her biggest supporter. But Gregory's voice still echoed in her head sometimes. "You'll never find someone who puts up with your ambition like I did." That evening, Victoria was working late at her office when her assistant knocked on her door. "Miss Emerson, there's someone here to see you." Victoria glanced up, surprised. "I don't have any more appointments today." "It's Mr. Quinn. He says it's important." Victoria's heart skipped. "Send him in." Gavin appeared in her doorway, looking travel-worn in jeans and a slightly rumpled button-down shirt. "Hey." "I thought you were on your way to Tokyo," Victoria said, setting aside her tablet. I got as far as the airport." He moved into her office, closing the door behind him. "Then I realized we left things in a bad place and I couldn't get on that plane without fixing it." Victoria stood, emotion welling in her throat. "Gavin, you didn't have to do that. Your hotel can wait," he finished for her. "Victoria, I need you to know something. Yes, my work is important to me, but not more important than us. Not more important than you." Victoria blinked back unexpected tears. "I'm sorry about earlier. I overreacted." Gavin crossed the room, taking her hands in his. "No, you were right to call me out. I've been taking on too much personally instead of delegating. It's a habit I'm working on breaking." "It's not just that," Victoria admitted. Sometimes I still hear Gregory's voice in my head telling me that my career will always come between me and any relationship." "Gregory was wrong," Gavin said firmly, "about so many things, but especially about that." "Victoria, what I feel for you, it's not in spite of your ambition or your success, it's partly because of it. I admire you, your drive, your vision, your compassion for others. You're the most extraordinary woman I've ever met." Victoria felt a tear escape despite her efforts. "I feel the same way about you, and I'm trying not to let my past color our future. It's just hard sometimes." "I know," Gavin said gently, "and I'm not asking you to forget everything overnight. Just trust that I'm nothing like him. I don't want to change a single thing about you." Victoria looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. "I do trust you, more than I've ever trusted anyone." "Good," Gavin said, "because I rescheduled my Tokyo trip. My VP of operations is handling it, and I was hoping you might be free this weekend instead." "I think I could clear my calendar," Victoria said with a small smile. "What did you have in mind?" "A surprise," Gavin replied mysteriously. "Pack for warm weather." 2 days later, Victoria found herself on Gavin's private jet, destination unknown until they landed on a small Caribbean island. A car took them to a secluded villa overlooking the ocean, where they spent 3 blissful days swimming, reading, and reconnecting away from the pressures of their respective empires. On their last evening, they walked along the beach at sunset, the sand still warm beneath their bare feet. "Thank you for this weekend," Victoria said, leaning into Gavin's side as they walked. "It was exactly what we needed." "It was," Gavin agreed. He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Victoria, these past 6 months have been the happiest of my life." Something in his tone made Victoria's heart race. "Mine too." Gavin took both her hands in his. "I had this whole speech planned, but now that the moment is here, I'm finding it hard to remember the words, so I'll just say this. I love you, Victoria Emerson. I love your brilliance, your resilience, your kindness. I love the way you furrow your brow when you're concentrating, and the sound of your laugh when something really amuses you. I love watching you run your company with such grace and determination." Victoria felt tears forming in her eyes as Gavin continued. "I want to build a life with you, a partnership in every sense of the word." So, he released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Dropping to one knee in the sand, he opened it to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond ring. "Victoria Emerson, will you marry me?" Victoria's free hand flew to her mouth, emotion overwhelming her for a moment. In that heartbeat of silence, she saw their future together, equal partners supporting each other's dreams, challenging each other to grow, loving each other through whatever life brought their way. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Gavin, I'll marry you." His face broke into a radiant smile as he slid the ring onto her finger, then stood to pull her into a passionate kiss. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing through happy tears. "I love you," Victoria said, the words feeling both monumental and completely natural. "I love you too," Gavin replied, holding her close as the sun dipped below the horizon. 1 year later, Victoria stood at the back of a flower-filled garden at Gavin's Hampton estate, preparing to walk down the aisle to where he waited. Her father, beaming with pride, offered his arm. "Ready, sweetheart?" Victoria nodded, too emotional for words. As the music began and she took her first steps toward her future husband, she caught sight of her company's leadership team seated together, all of whom had become dear friends. Beyond them were Gavin's executives, his family, and their shared circle of friends who had supported their relationship from the beginning. Gavin's face, as he watched her approach, was a study in joy and devotion. When she reached him, he took her hands in his eyes never leaving hers as they exchanged vows promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly, to choose each other every day. "I never expected that standing up to my ex would lead me to you," Victoria whispered during their first dance as husband and wife, "but I'm so grateful it did." "I knew from that first night," Gavin admitted. "When you stood your ground against him with such dignity and strength, I was already falling for you." Victoria smiled up at him. "Who would have thought that protecting me would mean loving me?" "I would," Gavin said simply, "because loving you, Victoria Quinn, is the easiest thing I've ever done." As they danced under the stars, surrounded by those who cared for them, Victoria felt completely at peace. The journey hadn't been without its challenges. They were both still learning how to balance their demanding careers with their relationship, but they faced each obstacle as partners, their bond only growing stronger with each test. In Gavin, Victoria had found not just a lover, but a true equal who celebrated her success rather than feeling threatened by it. And in loving him, she had finally silenced the doubts that Gregory had planted so long ago. Her heart and her ambition could coexist beautifully with the right person.